Hi, my name is Sebastian van der Schier and I'm an ex-social anxiety disorder sufferer, and I've been coaching socially phobic clients since 2009. And in this video, I'm going to share with you how I overcame my social anxiety completely and how you can do the same. And I'll share some insights and perspective on the journey from social anxiety to social confidence. I suffered from social anxiety for over a decade. And when it was at its worst, I would wake up anxious, or my first couple of thoughts of the day would be about the people that I might run into and how much my life sucked and how it was unacceptable and so on. And I had intense fears of being disapproved of, or running into people that I had been anxious with before, or blushing, or all of that stuff. I felt very insecure. I was ashamed of myself. I thought I was the biggest loser alive, and I felt massively anxious. And it was in almost all situations. At home I felt fine. When I was alone with my mom or with my sis, I was fine. But as soon as I was in the company of other people, in the company of more than one person aside from myself, that's when I would get into trouble. Especially when attractive women were around, I'd be extremely awkward, or guys that I perceived to be cooler than me, I would be massively anxious. And I didn't really know what was going on with me. I didn't know that was labeled as social anxiety. I just knew that I had that blushing problem and that I became anxious all the time. And things started to change when I stumbled onto some information that changed my perspective, that gave me some insight into what was going on with me. Now, I won't go into the full version of my story because I've done that in other videos, but the long and short of it is that I stumbled onto some information that day that gave me a perspective that what I was dealing with was a problem, and that problem could be overcome by taking certain steps. And that gave me inspiration and motivation to say, hey, I'm gonna tackle this no matter what. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm gonna make sure that I get to a place where I feel comfortable and relaxed with myself, with other people, where I can enjoy socializing. And that was such an empowering perspective that this is also what I want to share with you in an illustration that's about to come up. Basically, after I got that perspective, I had another problem, because the solutions that they suggested, the steps that they suggested to get out of this shitty situation that I was in, didn't really work for me. So the suggestions were doing affirmations, doing visualizations. So I did affirmations, did visualizations, I changed my thoughts, I journaled. What did I do? I faced my fears. So I faced my worst fears. I was really afraid of rejection. So I purposely got myself rejected by a bunch of women. I would go to the city, bring my friend along, and he would say, okay, get yourself rejected. And I would walk up to the girl and say, hey, you like me, give me your number. And obviously I got rejected, and I did that over and over again. And at the end of the day, I felt fantastic. I'm like, yeah, I'm the man, I'm rejection proof. But a couple of days later, it was back to square one. I did the thing that I was afraid of most, embarrassing myself. I smeared bright red lipstick over my lips and over my eyes. I really went to the extreme, and went walking through the city, starting conversations with people. Now, these things, to get myself to do these things, took so much out of me. Like I had difficulty catching sleep days before, knowing what was about to happen, knowing what I had committed myself to. I was really afraid, and I really had to force myself and push myself to do it. And then when I did it, at the end of it, I felt fantastic. But the results didn't last. It didn't stick long term. So a couple of days later, or a week later, I felt like I was back to square one. So while I might have made some progress, it really didn't feel like that. Or my anxiety was so loud that I couldn't really perceive these subtle changes. But anyway, I kept looking for a solution that would be helpful for my situation, that would be more effective, more efficient. And that's when I stumbled onto EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques. I go into more detail what EFT is and how to apply it to overcome social anxiety on my website. But basically what it is, it's a gentle tapping technique that allows you to rapidly reduce negative emotions that are connected to thoughts, memories, and beliefs. So the thing is, it looks really weird. So what you're doing is you're doing this while you're focusing on a specific emotion. And then as you do the tapping, the emotion releases, decreases, and eventually dissolves. Now, when I first heard about this, when I saw this demonstrated on a YouTube video way back when, I thought, yeah, right, this is the biggest nonsense ever. It's probably some clever scam. It's the internet. This can't be true. But I did my research and, I found thousands of testimonials, hundreds of videos on YouTube, and, you could learn the basics for free online. So I'm like, there must be something to this. And after a long period of trying, having difficulties getting it to work for me, I eventually had an experience at a workshop, because I'm like, if this really works, then a workshop leader, someone who leads a workshop should be able to get some results with me. And that's in fact what happened. So when I was at the workshop, eventually the workshop leader asked me a few questions that were quite probing at the time. I think I might have been 19 or 20 at the time, maybe 21 actually. And he asked me some questions about sex, girls, relationships, because he could see that I had discomfort with that. And as he asked me those questions, he asked me that in front of a couple of people. And now as I started talking about how I either didn't have a girlfriend or hadn't had sex in a long time or was a virgin, I wasn't a virgin anymore. Anyway, some of these topics brought massive shame and embarrassment up for me as all these people were watching me. And he's like, now do the tapping. And then as I did that tapping technique, it's like the shame and embarrassment, the heat from my face, it was like the blood was starting to flow back. And I started to feel calm, and it was like the shame and embarrassment just got flushed out of my body. And instead came a very relaxed, peaceful feeling. And within just a few minutes, I could talk about the same topic without any discomfort whatsoever. And I couldn't even bring the shame and embarrassment back. So there was a massive shift that happened inside of me, and that was more profound than all the affirmations and the visualizations and blah, blah, blah that I had done before combined. So, obviously this was quite impressive to me. And I was like, I'm going to make sure that I know how to apply this to overcome my social anxiety completely. And, that has put me on a path over many years. And that's what I want to talk about with you today. And some of the things that I learned from studying under, the top EFT therapists and coaches and psychologists is that anxiety is not really the real problem, but there's actually something else going on. And I have an illustration that I want to share with you that presents this in a clear and understandable way. So let's have a look at that.
Find yourself in a social situation and all of a sudden it starts. Your heart races 100 miles an hour, your mind blanks out, and you feel a knot in your stomach or chest. And the more you fight it, the worse it gets. So you start doom thinking and you fear all these worst case scenarios that might happen. They probably think I'm a loser, and if they pay attention to me, I just know that they can see me being anxious. I gotta remain my cool. What if I embarrass myself? What if they start criticizing me? What if they humiliate me? You see the situation that you're in through the filter of possible danger. And you're hyper alert to the things that you fear might happen, like being disapproved of or made fun of or look foolish and so on. And all of these social anxiety symptoms are the result of the fight, flight, freeze response. This fight, flight, freeze response is our built-in survival response that gets activated when our mind perceives danger. Now, once it gets activated, adrenaline gets pumped through your veins, Blood rushes away from your head and your digestive system into your outer limbs, and your throat tightens up. It puts your whole system in survival mode. Now, the activation of this response enables you to fight, run, or hide from the danger that your mind perceives. So the social anxiety symptoms that you experience, a racing heart, mind blanking, a lump in your throat, tightness in the chest, the panic, the sweaty hands, and so on, are the result of this fight, flight, freeze response having been activated. So while anxiety seems to be the problem you're trying to overcome, it's actually not the real problem, or not the only problem. The real, deeper underlying problem is that your subconscious mind perceives you to be unsafe in social situations. And because it perceives danger, it automatically responds to that danger by firing off the fight, flight, freeze response, which causes you to experience anxiety symptoms. So since anxiety is merely the result of our mind firing off its built-in response to danger, only focusing your efforts on beating your social anxiety won't work. It's like hosing water out of a boat with a leak in it. You'll stay afloat, but until you fix the leak, water will keep coming into your boat. By dealing with what triggers the activation of your fight, flight, freeze response, you are fixing the leak in your boat, so to speak. Now, to be anxiety-free, you need your subconscious mind to perceive that you are safe in social situations. When your mind believes that you're safe, there no longer is a fight, flight, freeze response that gets activated. As a result, you no longer experience the anxiety symptoms when you're in a social setting. So why does your subconscious mind perceive danger? Well, that's because of negative limiting beliefs. Because of these beliefs, it reads certain social situations as dangerous. And because of these beliefs, your subconscious reacts by firing off its automated, built-in response to that perceived danger, the fight, flight, freeze response. And the fight, flight, freeze response results in you experiencing something we label as anxiety. Now, in order to change that perception of danger, you need to neutralize or change the negative limiting beliefs that are causing your subconscious mind to perceive the danger in social situations. Once you've successfully neutralized or changed these negative limiting beliefs, your subconscious mind perceives you to be safe in social situations, and then the fight, flight, freeze response won't be activated, and you no longer experience anxiety.
Yeah, so how did I overcome these negative limiting beliefs? How did I get to feel safe in social situations? Well, that was quite a journey to get there because I had a lot of them. I believed that there was something wrong with me and that I wasn't lovable and that I was bad and that the world wasn't safe for me and that people were out to get me and that people didn't like me and that I was bad and wrong and all of that stuff. And because I had these beliefs, I perceived social situations to be dangerous. And to get rid of these beliefs has been quite a journey. And to get from where I was at its worst to where I am today kind of happened in three main phases. And I'd like to share a little bit about each phase, what happened to me, because it tends to be typical. While it's faster for some people than it is for others, you can kind of get you could get a proper expectation of what it will be like for you as you hear these three phases. So let's get into that. Now, in the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just I'd learned the basics of the tapping, and I had quite a history of studying self-development. And I applied that, and I made some changes here and there, but it was very subtle. When I started to release some of my past traumas, that's when I started to notice a bit more changes. So my general anxiety started to lift. It wasn't as intense anymore. It was milder, more manageable. And when I got to a point where I kind of plateaued, I couldn't make any progress anymore, I got in touch with the same guy, the same workshop workshop leader who helped me with my first shift, my first experience of the tapping. And he said, well, how much acceptance do you have? How well do you accept yourself? How well do you accept your anxiety? How well do you accept what's going on in your life right now? I'm like, are you kidding? I'm not accepting that at all. I'll fight it. I've sworn that I'll fight this until I'm free of it. And he's like, wow, how well is it working for you? And clearly it was not working at all. And he's like, what you resist persists. So he's like, try to tap, try to address the tapping and all the things that you don't accept about both the anxiety, about yourself, and about your life circumstances. And as I started doing that, I got tremendous relief. So my anxiety reduced significantly. And not just that, I also started feeling better about myself. And a lot of the shame that I was dealing with lifted. I then started working with various top EFT practitioners to work on specific stuff from my childhood. The emotional abuse from my stepdad, my mom not being emotionally available, the death of my father, and the big traumas in my life, and the big embarrassments, and all of that stuff. And as I was guided through that kind of stuff, I grew tremendously. I no longer felt anxious in many situations, and I had become a lot more comfortable with myself. And this big fear of embarrassing myself wasn't really there. And what I now found was that in certain situations where I formerly was really anxious, I all of a sudden was surprised to feel like, hey, I'm not anxious here anymore. Well, I can remember jumping into the back of a jeepney, meeting some new people because we're going on some jungle tour, and I said good morning, and a conversation started. And normally, after saying good morning, I would have to shut up and not make any eye contact because any conversation in a group session would make me highly anxious. And now I found myself comfortably having the conversation. I'm like, great, this is another area that I've grown comfortable with myself. This is another area where I now feel safe to be myself. My brain doesn't perceive danger in this situation. And that's what started happening more and more. So I got eventually to a point where I was comfortable just walking on the street, not being so obsessively worried about what other people were thinking of me anymore. So this was massive freedom. I could sit in a coffee shop and there were other people and I wouldn't be like, oh my God, they're looking at me. They're judging me even though they're strangers. So that was gone. And part of why that was gone was because I also did a lot of the tapping in public. Whenever I would become ashamed, I immediately would go to the toilet and start tapping on why I felt ashamed and to reduce that shame. And I can also remember when I was in the Netherlands, being on my bike, riding my bike without hands, as Dutch people do, and having oncoming traffic towards me, being worried about what they're thinking of me. Like I see them for a couple of seconds. It doesn't make any logical sense, but boom, my anxiety would go off. And I remember tapping on all of my thoughts about what they were thinking of me and, focusing on the feelings that I had in my body, the racing heart and doing the tapping and so on. And all of that stuff really helped me to get to a place where, I could sit or be in a social situation, and if I didn't do anything like starting conversations or being in a conversation for a long time or, talking to a group of people or whatever the case may be, just being myself without taking any action, I had peace. I had reached peace within that. I still had some situations where I would get anxious, like talking to a group of people, being the center of attention, or doing something new I hadn't done before. But in most situations, I was free of anxiety. And when anxiety would come up for me, it would kind of take me by surprise. Like it was not, okay, I'm going to go to this situation, I know I'm going to get anxious. It was more like, all of a sudden I'm anxious. And because I had gone through the other stuff already, I knew that when anxiety comes up, I know what to do. So I wasn't afraid of becoming anxious anymore because I had the tools to deal with it. So but it would still come up for me. So I lived abroad. I've been living abroad for the past 10 years. I'm originally from the Netherlands. And I would go back to the Netherlands once a year for a couple of weeks. And, I can remember, for example, going back and arriving in the Netherlands and taking a train, which I hadn't done in years, and feeling anxious in the train. And that was simply because stuff came up for me that I hadn't addressed yet. Or I can remember reconnecting with an old friend that I used to be anxious around. And, the moment I see him, boom, I get anxious again. And that was simply stuff coming up that I hadn't addressed yet. In those situations, my mind was simply like, okay, Sebas, you're not safe here. This is dangerous. So when that came up for me, I asked myself, what is dangerous in this situation for me? What do I worry might happen? How come I don't feel safe right now? And then I would simply tap on whatever came up for me. And if I couldn't address it myself, I would have a coach help me through it. And as I kept doing this, I simply chipped away each and everything that caused my brain to perceive danger in those situations. And I became more and more calm, and the anxiety, released and got less and less and less. No, by now I was anxiety free, so I might get triggered with anxiety once a month or once every couple of months, and it wasn't a big problem anymore at all. However, what was still a problem was really connecting with other people. So, I would have sometimes moments where I really connected with someone and really had an awesome time. But that was more the exception than it was the norm. Most of the time, I was very standoffish with people, and I was secretly still feeling superior to them or inferior. And I was very judgmental, and I just didn't like being around other people so much most of the time. And that really took me quite some time to to move past that. So I work with my own coach every week for the past 5 years, and she has really helped me to get to a place where I feel totally safe to be myself with all people in all situations. So I don't need to adjust who I am depending on the people that I interact with. I'm just myself with everyone. Most people like it, some people don't, and that's okay. I still feel safe in those situations. And that has allowed me to now be able to deeply connect with people, and it's effortless. It's not something I'm doing, it's just something I'm being, so I can have fun and I can play, and it's just something that's natural now. It just happens. I don't think about socializing. I don't wake up and think, oh, I'm going to socialize, or I'm going to say this, or I'm going to say that. It just happens. It's natural. Now, I still have moments sometimes where where I'm in a bad mood, and I don't care about someone, or I'm annoyed, or I'm judgmental. However, that is now the exception, and when that happens, I'm aware of it, and I've got the tools to move past it. So I've really been able to get to a place where I've gotten rid of these beliefs that prevent me from feeling safe, and now I'm safe to be myself. And as the illustration showed, that's something that you can get to as well. So you can get to that by, why do you feel anxious? Well, you feel anxious because your brain perceives you to be unsafe in those social situations. And as a result, the built-in response to that danger, the fight, flight, freeze response, gets activated, your body is flushed, you feel the anxiety, and the reason why it perceives that danger is because of these beliefs. These beliefs are learned, and with the tapping, you can unlearn these beliefs. Okay. Now, people often ask me, well, how long does it take to overcome my social anxiety? And that is different for everyone. It really depends on your unique situation, how long you've had it, what happened in your childhood, how willing are you to overcome it, what kind of resistances are you dealing with, what is your life looking like right now, and so on and so forth. But there are a couple of things that you can do to shorten this journey. Okay, and I've written those down in a PDF that you can download. It's on my website. And in that, I've also added some quick fixes. So some things that you can do to feel better instantly, to manage your anxiety much better. So you can find that on my website, and you don't have to sign up for anything. You just find that on my homepage, and that is socialanxietysolutions.com. And then I want to share something really exciting before I leave. I'm launching a podcast show called Social Anxiety Solutions. And here I'm interviewing the leaders of the Western traditional psychology world as well as the Eastern energy psychology world. And I'm uncovering their best secrets, strategies, tactics, and techniques to help you overcome your social anxiety, to support you on your journey from social anxiety to social confidence. And that show is called Social Anxiety Solutions, like my website, and that will be downloadable in iTunes from the 1st of May 2015 onwards. Awesome. So if this has been helpful for you, you can subscribe here. I'm releasing a video each week, every Thursday, and then I'll talk to you next Thursday. Bye for now.